Hi, my name is Rebecca Lowe. I am with the Delaware Odyssey of the Mind. I am the training coordinator. I'd like to welcome you to this training, the Judges General training. And I want to thank you for agreeing to be a judge. We could not do this program without judges, so we really appreciate you agreeing to be a judge. So thank you. Let's go ahead and get started with today's training then. So here are our learning objectives. This is an introduction to Odyssey of the Mind, a general overview of the program. We want to familiarize you with the judging responsibilities that you will have, talk about schedules and deadlines, and then give you information about testing. So this is the general training. This is just kind of the overview. Once you take this training, you will need to take a 20-question quiz, and you will get the link to that. It is an open book quiz in that you can go back and look at this video again. We will have the PowerPoint up on the website, so you can always check back on the slides while you're taking the test. But once you have taken the test, we ask, like I said, it's 20 questions. If you get less than 15 correct, if you could please take the test again, that would be really great, because we want to make sure that you really understand this program. So, and once again, thank you for agreeing to be a judge. So just quick history, Odyssey of the Mind was started by Dr. Sam Miklas, who was a professor at a college in New Jersey. It was set up as a challenge for his engineering students. It was extremely popular. It eventually spread to schools in the area and eventually became a problem-solving competition for kids back in 1979. It then spread across the United States and eventually across the world. It is an international program, and the program started in Delaware in 1980. So we are celebrating our 42nd year of having Odyssey of the Mind in the state of Delaware. So we are a state affiliate. We are known as Delaware Odyssey of the Mind. We have also been known as DELCAPS in the past, but it is Delaware Odyssey of the Mind, or DEOotM. We are the state affiliate of the International Odyssey of the Mind program, which is also Competitions, Inc. As DEOotM, we are an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit organization with a board of directors consisting of 15 voting members. We provide training for coordinators, coaches, and judges. We coordinate a state finals competition. In years past, we have also coordinated regional competitions. This year, we're only doing a state finals. And we foster partnerships with schools and organizations throughout the state to try and get more kids involved with this program. So what is Odyssey of the Mind? It's a program where teams of students work together to solve original fun problems by using their creativity. And all of that creativity is bottled into an 18-minute presentation. So when you are viewing the problems, you should expect the unexpected. And here are some pictures of some past performances, just to give you an idea of what exactly you might see during a competition. So the teams compete in divisions, and those divisions are based on the grade level, and what level the kids compete at depends on the grade level of the oldest team member. So there are basically a total of 5 divisions. You have the primary, which is for the littles. Those are students in kindergarten through 2nd grade. It is a non-competitive division, meaning that they perform and they do their spontaneous problem, but they don't actually, there's no 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place winner in these. Everybody gets a medal for primary. It's really just designed, that division, to introduce kids to Odyssey of the Mind and get them excited about it so that they can eventually, hopefully, compete in it. Division 1 is elementary school. It's normally it's students in grades 3 to 5. However, you can have kids in kindergarten, 1st or 2nd grade, go ahead and compete in Division 1. So it really is the elementary school level. Division 2 is middle school, which is kids in grades 6 to 8. Division 3 is high school, kids in grades 9 to 12. And then there is a Division 4, which is college students or adults in continuing education programs. However, you do not see these students and these teams at the state level. They only compete at the world finals. So you will never see a Division IV at a state competition. But those are the divisions that you will see: primary, Division I, Division II, Division III. And again, the division that the kids compete in depends on the grade of the oldest student on the team. So if you have a team consisting of all fifth graders plus one sixth grader, then they would compete as Division II, because the highest grade on the team is grade 6. So they would actually, you get pulled up a division, you never get pulled down into a division based on grade level. So divisions 1 through 4 teams have members on a team. They can compete with fewer members than 7. We usually recommend they have at least 5, but there have been teams of less than 5. And when you go to World Finals, sometimes you even see a team of 1. It's a definite disadvantage to have fewer than 5 kids, but you know, we will take any number of kids on the team. With primary teams, you can have more than 7 kids. We don't really recommend going above 9. You have to get special permission from our tournament director to compete with more than 9 kids on a primary team, but you can have more kids than 7 on a primary team. So these kids, these teams choose from one of 5 competitive long-term problems, each of which has a different subject matter. So the subject matters actually stay the same every year, but the problems are different every year. So problem 1 is what is known as a vehicle problem. Problem 2 is a technical problem. Problem 3 is a classics problem. Problem 4 is structure, and problem 5 is performance. There is only one problem for primary teams to solve. It is a primary problem, and it is set up so that this problem features elements of each of the other of the problems 1 through 5, like so things that you might typically run into, because again, you're trying to give them a taste of Odyssey of the Mind and get them excited about it. So with this long-term problem, each problem includes 1 or more objectives, a set of limitations and requirements, and specific scoring categories. These problems are different every year, and the requirements and limitations change as well. With Odyssey of the Mind competition, there are 3 distinct scoring areas. You have your long-term problem that is worth 200 points. And again, that's the problem the problems we just talked about, problems 1 through 5 plus the primary problem. These problems are provided annually by CCI, the Creative Competitions Inc., which is the Odyssey of the Mind international program. These problems are released usually in late summer, and teams work for months on their solution, on the solution to the problem leading up to the tournament. You also have a section called Style, which is worth 50 points. This is scored as part of the long-term problem performance, and it's about added elements that enhance the performance. So they get 200 points for their long-term solution, and then another 50 points for the style associated with the long-term solution. And then you have spontaneous, and that is worth 100 points. Teams solve a problem on the spot. So this is separate from their long-term problem. There are 3 types of spontaneous problems that they could solve. There is verbal, where they respond to a prompt. There is hands-on, where they build something or manipulate materials. And then they have something called verbal/hands-on, where they make or manipulate something, then make a verbal response of some kind. Teams do not know ahead of time what spontaneous problem they're going to get. They will find out when they walk in the room. So they don't, not only do they not know what the problem is, they don't know which of the 3 types of problems it will be. Teams do practice various spontaneous problems throughout the year to kind of prepare themselves for it, but they will not know what the problem is until they walk in to the actual judging room. So Odyssey of the Mind is a competition, and but it is really so much more. Students learn teamwork and collaboration. They gain independence and confidence. They learn how to compromise. They learn how to solve problems through critical and creative thinking and risk-taking. It's really about the creative journey that these kids take. And for us as Delaware Odyssey of the Mind, it's really important for this to be a fun journey for them. We really try and make the competition fun. We try and make it as fun as possible for the kids so that they want to come back again and do it, because they do get so much out of this process. So creativity is a real backbone of Odyssey of the Mind. It's a very important part of it. This is all about teaching kids to think creatively, to think outside the box, to do some risk taking. So part of what Odyssey does is it encourages teams to take new approaches to solving problems. These teams create original characters and situations that they come up with. We encourage them to get out of what is called functional fixedness, where they think that something can only be used one way. So you'll see like trash or recyclables or other materials are artfully and creatively repurposed. Common items are used in unexpected ways. Again, that is kind of moving out of that functional fixedness mindset. Multiple senses are engaged and solutions are age appropriate. However, sometimes you will be very surprised at what kids will think of. You may think of something may not have been able to be thought of by kids at that age, but they really come up with some really amazing things when they're allowed to just think on their own without a lot of outside influence from adults. Risk-taking through innovation does not always mean the task is successfully completed, and that's okay. Failure is an option, and it can be a hallmark of creativity. So even if a task is not successful, sometimes it can just cause something very, very creative to come forth. So it is rewarded. Creativity is really rewarded in this program. So this is kind of like the history and a little bit of the structure of this program. So let's get down to the details of what it means to judge at a tournament and what you can expect, what we expect from you, what you can expect from us. So first of all, judges must be present for the entire tournament day to see every team and the problem and division to which they are assigned, and they may not leave until released by the head judge or problem captain. So if you should have been given the date for the tournament, you need to realize that you are committed there for the entire day. So if you have some other engagement, midday, you're going to need to rethink whether or not you can be a judge. We're hoping not to keep you the entire day, but you just don't know. So you really need to block out a majority of the day for that. Scoring judges evaluate solutions based on the problem's criteria. Scoring judges record what they observe. Judges never let teams compete in unsafe conditions, so you are there to make sure that they are competing in a way that is safe. And judges encourage teams and help them to relax and have fun. So this really, again, comes back to we want this to be a fun experience for these kids. And for you too. So let's talk about conflict of interest for a minute, because many judges come to us because they know the coach personally or they know the families personally. You could be a family member of one of the kids. You could be a coworker of one of the parents. You usually have some type of personal relationship with the team that asked you to become a judge. So what you need to know is that judges are going to have access to problem information that could help a team maximize its score. So if you have a close personal relationship with a participating student or coach, that judge, you should not be assigned to the same problem that they are doing. So if you're, for example, if the team that asked you to be a judge is doing problem 3, you should not be assigned to problem 3 because you're going to have information that you could give to them to help them better their score. And we don't want to put you into that situation. If for some reason you are placed in the same problem of the team that asked you to judge, you need to let the tournament official know so that you can be reassigned. And it doesn't matter that, let's say, go back again, let's say the team is doing problem 3, but they're division 2, and you've been told that you're going to judge division 3. It doesn't matter. You just should not be in problem 3 at all. Excuse me. So teachers and school personnel may judge teams from their own schools. That is fine. for you to judge those kids, as long as, again, the team that asked you, you're not judging the problem that they know. And if you have any doubts, if it feels like there might be a possible conflict of interest for you for what your assignment is, then you need to talk to your problem captain, and they can help kind of puzzle through whether or not you need to be assigned to another problem. So some safety rules that you're going to need to help keep an eye out for the team. Teams may not cause damage to the facility or injury to another person. So there is a list of items. Odyssey of the Mind International, CCI, has a program guide that comes out that has a whole lot of information in there, including items that are not permitted. So some of the items that are not permitted are live animals, helium balloons that are not weighted down, dry ice, items that leave a residue, fire in any form, as well as no nudity, profanity, vulgarity, violent acts, and or ethnic or racial slurs. So all of that is prohibited by Odyssey of the Mind. Another safety rule is that all team members must have their feet covered. The bottom of the foot must be covered by a material that is generally non-penetrable. So any team member who loses a foot covering must stop performing until it is replaced. So it is very important that they, it has to be covered. It can't just be like a sock on their foot. They need to be wearing something that has a sole to it. So if, for example, a team member comes in with no shoes on, they're going to be told they have to put shoes on. If they are performing and they lose their shoe in the middle of the performance must stop until they put the shoe back on their foot. And that is part of your responsibility, is if you see a kid who loses their shoe, you have to stop the performance. Only unmodified, commercially available sealed batteries may be used as part of the long-term problem solution, unless otherwise specified by a problem. Actual weapons are prohibited and will be confiscated, and replicas that look real are also prohibited. However, mock weapons, things that are clearly not a real weapon, that are clearly not even a replica of a real weapon, are fine. You're going to see like swords made out of cardboard, or a ray gun, or those types of things, and those are fine, as long as it's very clear that it is a made-up item and that it's not going to hurt anyone. Then those kind of weapons are fine, but anything that's real or anything that looks real is prohibited. Again, the problem guide has a lot of the information. It has a lot more details, so you can always take a look at that. It is available online. The complete list of safety rules can be found on pages 39 to 41. So words matter. And just so you know, this is the general training. So when it gets down to the problem that you're assigned, when you attend your problem-specific training, you will dive much, much deeper into the problem that you are actually assigned to, and making sure that you understand the wording behind the problem, what the problem's about, what you're looking for. But just so you know, kind of the higher bird's eye view is that words really matter. Odyssey of the Mind is almost its own language. It has words mean certain things. There is a glossary in the program directory that kind of explains some of these words that get used. Every problem has its own glossary to help explain some of these words. But like something to know is that like overall creativity of the performance, overall creativity of the theme of the performance, overall quality of the performance, and artistic quality, believe it or not, those are not the same thing. Those are all slightly different things. So if you are being asked to judge something like one of those, they're not interchangeable. They actually all mean slightly different things. So like I said, the problem captains will provide more information on the wording of the problem you are assigned to, and they will make sure that everyone on the judging team understands the wording. So that is part of your problem-specific training, is to really take a fine-tooth comb to that wording and make sure everyone agrees, okay, oh, so they are saying the kids must do this. We all agree, we all understand what that means. Oh, we are supposed to be judging them based on this criteria. Let's make sure we all have the same understanding of what that criteria is. And again, you can consult the program glossary or the program guide glossary if you're not sure what a word or term means, because Odyssey is really its own language. All judges are responsible for making sure that teams are treated fairly and have a good tournament experience. Teams should be complimented regardless of the success of the solution. So even if it is not the best thing that you've ever seen, you want to be kind to the children, because we do want them to have fun, even if they do not successfully complete their problem, or if it's not solved to their satisfaction. But we want to make sure that we give them praise, and that we make them want to come back and try it again and hopefully learn more. Penalties are assessed. That is part of the judging responsibility. However, it is not a punitive assessment. We are not looking to punish kids. We're not looking to be mean to kids. We're not looking to make children cry. We are just trying to level the playing field when it comes to the competition. So when you look at having to assess penalties, you're trying to make it fair to everybody. So in terms of things like outside assistance, if you're not sure if something was done, again, if we have to assess a penalty, it's really just to level the playing field, not to be punitive. And if you're unsure about something, we try and give the team the benefit of the doubt. Judges do have a chance to interact with one another and confirm about what was being said, and what other judges saw, but in general, we try and give the kids the benefit of the doubt. So a little bit more into penalties. On your screen, you'll see the list of possible penalties and the points that can be assigned, this is the list of the possible penalties, and points that can be assigned are found in the problem itself, because each problem is slightly different. But some of the penalties that could be assigned are things like spirit of the problem violation. That doesn't happen very often, but it is something that the kids can be assessed a penalty for. Unsportsmanlike conduct, and this happens not only in the problem, but outside of the problem. If the kids behave in a way that is unsportsmanlike throughout the day, they can be assessed an unsportsmanlike penalty. So for example, if they booed another team, or they heckled another team, or just did something that was really inappropriate, we can assess an unsportsmanlike conduct. Having an incorrect or missing membership sign is something they can be penalized for. They are supposed to have a membership sign available throughout the performance. Please know that it doesn't have to be there every single second, though. If the sign falls over, it's okay. Made it through most of the performance, the sign suddenly falls over, that's fine. They may have more than one membership sign just to be on the safe side. So that's just something that, but they are supposed to have their membership sign there for the performance. Outside assistance, which means that someone other than the team members worked on the problem. It could be an adult, it could be the coach. But if either the team tells you they had outside assistance, or if you figure out in talking to the kids that there was outside assistance, for example, you're talking with them after the performance and they say, wow, how'd you come up with this idea? And they say, well, my mom did. That's outside assistance, and we have to assess a penalty for it. Over the time limit, so they do have 8 minutes to complete the problem. And in some problems, they have to stop at 8 minutes, and that's it. So if they don't finish doing everything they were supposed to do within the 8 minutes, then they're just going to lose those points. Some problems, it's problem 3 and 5, you're allowed to go overtime up to 1 minute, but the amount of time that you go over starts to have automatic penalty levels assessed. Or an over the cost limit. Every single problem has a budget. It has a set highest amount that you can spend. And if the kids go over that amount, then you get assessed a penalty for going over the budget. So like I said, again, on the screen is a picture of a team competing. This is actually at World Finals, I believe. Yeah, that's at World Finals. So there are 3 parts to the competition. You have the long-term problem, which is 200 points, style, which is 50 points, and then the spontaneous problem, which is 100 points. So long-term and style go together. That's being scored when they present their long-term solution. And then spontaneous is a separate scoring when they go and they do their spontaneous problem. And that's a total of 350 points that they can earn that day. So scoring, each problem has a scoring form that defines the criteria to be judged and the associated point values. So you can have anywhere from 0 to 20 usually is kind of the maximum that we've seen on points, but it's going to be different for every criteria, how many points it's worth, but usually 20 is the most that you see. Each team is scored individually based on how well they satisfy the criteria. So you are really not judging them one against the other. You are judging each team individually. The team's creative process and the details of their long-term solution are observed up close during the Q&A session that you get to have with the team after the performance. And that's when you get to look at all of those things and consider those when scoring. So you get to ask them questions, you get to find out how they made things, who had the idea. If it's like something that involves some engineering, the kids may show you, oh, and this is how this worked. If you have questions about how did that work or who came up with that, you'll get some time to spend with the kids afterwards to ask them that question. Again, teams should not be compared one to another. And scores should be consistent throughout the tournament. So once you see something and you're like, okay, that's a definite 5, you're going to want to kind of score things at that same level throughout the day. So you don't want to change or adjust your scoring during the day. So if halfway through the day, you're suddenly like, wow, I seem to be scoring things a lot higher than the other judges, maybe I should start scoring downwards. No, you need to stay the course and score at the level that you have been scoring. And that's fine. You know, you may have a slightly different take on like what is creative than maybe one of your fellow judges do, but we ask that you not be inconsistent with your scoring. Just go ahead and stick with the scoring that you have started out with the first team. It should be the same to the last team that you see that day. So most problems include objective scoring in the form. So if the objective is completed, the team earns the points. So this is really an all or nothing. There is no partial score. So for example, it could be the teams are required to do something where they have a light turn on 3 times. And the objective score is, did the light come on? Yes or no? Did the light come on 3 times? And you may get points for each of those times. Often it'll be like, a light must turn on 3 times and you get 5 points for every time it comes on. So if it came on only once, they get 5 points. If it came on twice, they get 10 points. If it came on 3 times, which is what they were asked, then they get the full 15. So these are all or none. There is no kind of like, well, I think it kind of happened. Either it happened or it didn't happen. A problem will specify whether the team may have multiple attempts to complete a task. Some problems are like you can try once, and if you don't get it, then you don't get the points. Others may allow you to try more than once, although that then starts to eat up their time. So they kind of have to decide how much time they want to take to complete a task, how important it is to get those points versus maybe moving on to the next task that they need to complete. So the objective must be observed or heard by at least one member of the judging team during the performance for the team to be awarded the points. All judges will have the same score for this item. So if they completed it, everybody says, yes, they completed it 5. So if no one saw it happen, then there is no score. If someone saw it happen, they get the score. So, and even if that judge was not really assigned to watch for that particular task to be completed, if they happen to see, if nobody else saw it, but they happen to see it, then basically everybody saw it. Again, this is about giving kids the benefit of doubt, about not trying to be punitive, and about trying to really help them have a good time and feel good about the experience. Please know that video and audio recordings cannot be used to validate whether or not something happened. So if the judges said, no, you didn't complete something, 0 points, a coach cannot come up afterwards and contest that with a video or an audio recording trying to say that this happened. We are not the NFL. We do not review the video. So you have objective scoring and then you have subjective scoring, and the problems all have some subjective scoring, some items that are a subjective score. Subjective is opinion. And so it really is, what you think. If that is one of the things you've been asked to score, it is really what your opinion is. And subjective scores cannot be, a coach cannot question subjective scores. They can question an objective score, like, oh, they said the light didn't turn on, it really did, but they cannot question any type of subjective score that a judge gives. So with this, you want to make sure that you read the problem wording very carefully so you understand what it is that you are scoring, because it is an opinion-based score. You want to follow the guidelines that are provided by the problem captain during your training, and also if you need to touch base with them during the day just to confirm that you understand what you're looking at. And you want to give credit for the effort as well as the result, because like I said earlier, failure is an option. Sometimes you don't 100% hit the mark, but you can give them partial credit. If it's like, well, they didn't 100% nail it, but they came about, 70%, then give them, 70% of the score. Again, we want to kind of err on the side of the kids about trying to have it be a good process for them. And remember, all the judges for that problem should use the same rule interpretations. That is why you will go through the specific training for judges to make sure that everyone understands it and that we were all using the same interpretation. You may be asked to be a style judge. That's the 50 points. So you have the 200 points for a long-term problem, and then you have the 50 points for the style of the problem. So style is an elaboration of the long-term problem solution that the team develops. A style score gives teams an opportunity to showcase their talents and interests, specifically an opportunity to kind of enhance their problem, maybe show off some skills that aren't really being addressed by the problem. So you might have, for example, a problem may not have any form of dance or any form of song, but if a kid on the team is a singer or a dancer, they may choose to throw that in as a style element just to let that kid, show off that skill. The elements selected are usually the most creative embellishments of the presentation. When we talk to the coaches and try to help them understand what style is, we always say, style is what makes the problem pop. It is what makes you go, wow. It makes you go, oh my gosh, how did they do that? That's amazing. It's really the wow factor of the problem. So if you are a style judge, you may see musical, artistic, dance, or writing talent on display. You may see engineering talent on display. A kid may come up with a really amazing way of having something happen. The team may strive to use unusual materials in non-traditional ways, again, moving away from the functional fixedness. So you could see cardboard used in ways that you may never have thought of. You may see just costumes made out of things that you would be like, who would have thought to make a costume out of that? It's really about the unexpected and being surprised and just the wow factor. Just wow, what a really great thing that these kids produced. So here are some examples of style right here on your screen. Actually, the World Finals team, they came in first in style that year, and that's the picture in the upper left-hand corner. So some of the elements to just point out real quick are, one, this costume here of the young lady in the hat. Her costume is made entirely out of playing cards. So that's an unusual material to use for a costume. This green costume over here is actually a giant chia pet. It's made out of living organic material. They actually grew that costume. This little tiny bird here was made using an ancient art form called quilling. So those are some really special, those are, one, unusual use of materials, a different kind of art form, just, things that really made it pop and made you go, wow, that's very, very cool. But you can see that there are highly decorated pieces. There's someone is performing in one of them. So you can see that it's just a lot of embellishment happening. So with style, when you're scoring it, there is a style form that is specific to every problem. Style is a total of 5 elements. The first 2 elements are set by the problem itself. It's laid out for them what they must do. The next 2 style elements, the team, it's called free choice of team. So the kids get to choose what they want to be considered for their style element. And then the 5th element is how all 4 of those come together. So as we explain it to the coaches, if you think of the 4 elements as threads, the 5th element, which is a paragraph that they write, this is the tapestry. This is what explains how those 4 threads come together to make a creative whole. Please know that when they are choosing their style elements, their 2 free choice of team, they may not select an item that is already being scored in the long-term problem as one of their style form, as one of their style items. So basically they cannot double dip. So if they are already, let's say they have a character that is already being judged on their appearance, they cannot ask for that same character to be judged also for their style points. That's double dipping, and it's not allowed. The description of the item to be scored for the free choice of team should be read very carefully by the style judges. We tell the coaches that the kids need to be very specific about what they want judged, to just kind of narrow your focus and allow you to really realize what they want judged, because saying that I want the clown character judged versus the creative use of materials in the costume, those are 2 different things. So if the kids were to just write the clown, then you would be judging everything about the clown, the appearance, the performance, the costume, all of that. Whereas if you said, we want you to judge the creative use of materials in the clown costume, that you are just focusing on the materials they used to make that costume and how creative it was. So if you had a kid who the clown wasn't very well acted, if they're saying, no, we only want you to focus on the costume, then you're going to disregard the acting and just focus on the costume and score it based on that. So with spontaneous, that is the other portion. So remember, you have long-term and style over here, and then the kids literally go to a completely different part of the building to do their spontaneous problems. So if you are a spontaneous judge, you will be assigned to one of 3 different types of problems that they could be solving. There is a verbal problem where the team gives responses to a problem and the judges listen and they score each response on whether it is creative or common. And your points are strictly based on creative. You get 1 for creative and usually 5. Reverse that, 1 for common, 5 for creative. So an example of that could be name an item. The team may be told, name an item that is red. A common response would be a stop sign. An uncommon response could be a newspaper. So it's kind of a play on words. And again, this is kind of what you'll talk through your judging team about, what you are going to think you consider common and creative. This is an example where if you kind of realize halfway through the day that what you thought was a creative response is actually a common response, you can't shift gears. You can't suddenly start giving a different score. So if you judged it a common response in the morning and you realize, or a creative response in the morning, and you realize halfway through the day, it's actually really a common response, you can't change. Everything, it needs to still be judged as a creative response for every team. They have what's called a hands-on problem. So the team will build or manipulate something. Usually there's just a bunch of materials put out on the table. They're told what they need to create, given some ideas, some rules about what it is they're supposed to be doing and creating. The judges evaluate the teamwork, the creativity, and the success at meeting the objective. So you are looking at all of those things. You're not looking at, do they successfully do what the problem said, but you're also looking at how creative they were in getting there, and how creative their solution is. And you're also looking at their teamwork. Did these kids work well together? were they fighting? Were they respectful and listening to one another and, you know, building off of each other's ideas? Or were they just all working separate, nobody interacting? And teamwork can actually be a very large percentage of the score. So, and that is something we work with the kids with to try and understand that you need to work together. It's something that the judges are going to be looking at. And then you have a combination. The third type of problem is a combination of those two problems, the hands-on verbal problem. And that's usually where the first part, the kids are given something to build or manipulate. And then in the second part, they give a verbal response about what they did. So they may be given a bunch of materials and told to create whatever they want. And then maybe in the second part, they have to create a story around whatever it was they created. So again, you're going to be evaluating the teamwork, how creative they were, and then score each response as creative or common. So how you interact with the students. You always want to be positive and supportive and show your appreciation for the team's efforts. You know, it's a scary day for them. They've been working all year on this problem. You know, they know that they're competing. And you want to make them feel comfortable. You want to make them feel good about whatever happened, even if everything completely failed. You want to just, you know, focus in on the good things that did happen and see if you can, you know, hopefully have them leave the day feeling good about the day. Now, in spontaneous, you may read directions, answer questions, and record responses, and that's it. You don't really have that interaction time with the kids where you tell them, oh, that, you know, that was really interesting. That doesn't happen in spontaneous. It happens in the long term. So in the long-term problems, your interactions with the kids will include post-performance questions, outside assistance questions, which happen at that same time, that post-performance question period. And then there's these sticky notes, and we'll talk about the sticky notes in just a second, but let me tell you, those sticky notes are really valued by the team. So in terms of post-performance questions, so after a team completes their long-term problems, the judges interact with them. You're actually going to get out of your seat and go up to where the kids are, go up to where their props are, where their sets are, and you're going to look at it all. You're going to look at their costumes, you're going to look at their props, you're going to be able to get up close and see what it is that they used. You want to ask questions about their creative and design process. We do train the coaches that they need to you know, work with their kids on basically bragging about what they did, that we, you know, we're like, don't hide that little light under a bushel. You want to make sure that, you know, to tell the judges, this is what I did, this is how I did it, and really brag about what they did. But some kids, you know, that's hard. They may feel intimidated. So, you know, be prepared to ask questions about, like, how did you do that? Could you tell me, you know, who came up with that? How did you build this? You know, what was the process you used? So you want to find out who built things or who made things, and do encourage them to brag and to explain what they did and who did it. And so if the kid said, I'm the one that, you know, painted that backdrop. Okay, well, tell me about it. You know, how did you decide to paint this? You know, what did you use? If there's an unusual use of material, who came up with that idea? How did that work? You do want to be on the lookout for what's called outside assistance. So a team solution is supposed to be theirs alone. As we tell the coaches, Odyssey of the Mind is hands-on for students, hands-off for adults. Adults should only be the guide on the side. They should not be building props, building sets, sewing costumes, anything like that. What you see the kids bring into the room and use for their long-term solutions should be things that they have created. Now, what you need to realize is you may see things that you think are unlikely to have come from children, but you will be surprised at what they can do when they are allowed on their own, to do things on their own. So you may see things that you're at first blush you think are not age appropriate, or, you know, how could a fifth grader have come up with this? But you can be really surprised at what kids can come up with. So just, you know, open your mind to that. If there was outside assistance, usually just some gentle questioning will reveal whose ideas you're seeing and which team members are responsible for the various parts of the problem. So just saying, oh, wow, this is really great. Who came up with this idea? And they can usually pinpoint it. Or if it was a parent, a lot of times the kids will say, oh, my mom came up with it, or the coach suggested it. And unfortunately, that's outside assistance. So if you become aware that someone on the team contributed to the problem, discuss it with the judging team. Also, if you have, in some situations, teams will have kids that dropped off, but they may still use their idea. And that is something, if that comes up, if they say, oh, little Susie, and you're like, oh, wow, which one of you is little Susie? And they're like, oh, well, she's not here. You'll want to find out what's going on. Little Susie may not be there because maybe she's homesick, or it could be that she dropped off the team. And you'll need to talk to the judging team about whether or not that's problem outside assistance, because there's times when it is and times when it isn't, and it's all contingent upon the team composition. The main thing to remember is that outside assistance penalties are not punitive. You are not looking to punish these kids. Instead, it's meant to level the playing field. So the penalty should really only remove points the team scored because of the outside assistance. So in other words, if you find out that mom was the one that suggested the idea, you're not going to be knocking off a huge chunk to teach the kids a lesson about how they weren't supposed to do that in Odyssey of the Mind. You're just leveling the playing field. You're like, okay, an adult contributed that idea. How would we make it fair to other teams, who didn't have an adult contribute an idea? So it really depends on things like how integral was that, whatever it was that was suggested by a non-team member, how integral was that to the problem solution? If it was not that integral, if it's something that, this didn't play a big part, it's going to be a smaller penalty assigned, as opposed to if it was the really core to the problem solution, it's obviously going to need to be a bigger penalty assigned. So I mentioned sticky notes earlier. These are really, the kids live for these things. And they really value them just as much or more than the score. I know when I was a coach, the kids would just be like, what do the sticky notes say? What do the sticky notes say? And what these notes are is they allow the long-term judges to give the students positive feedback about their performance. So you don't really get to give them that positive feedback when you're doing that after performance Q&A time with them. There, you're just kind of information gathering. It's not really a time to be, like, oh, great job or anything like that. It's really about you trying to gather information to be able to make some decisions about the scores that they're going to be getting. But the sticky notes are the chance for you to be positive with these kids. Now, and I'll show you example sticky notes in a minute. Some things to know is that they should be positive, but you want to avoid superlatives like best, most, finest, because you don't want to raise kids' expectations. Plus, you don't know what else you're going to see the rest of the day. So if you're like, this is the best performance I've seen all day, the kids will be like, oh my gosh, what if we're going to win because the judge thinks we're the best ever? And then you see another team that blows it out of the water, 2 teams down, and you're like, oh, wait, that was really the best. So you never want to say things like best, finest, most, or anything like that are going to unreasonably raise the kids' expectations. You also want to avoid making specific suggestions because if the team advances to the next level of competition, that can be considered outside assistance. So you don't want to say anything like, wow, that it would have been great if you could have, done this. Or if, maybe, if the costume had only this, it would have been so much better. So you don't want to do anything like that because that is outside assistance. But here are some examples of things that you might say on the sticky note. And you can see it's literally a sticky note. It's a Post-it note. And the kids, when the coach gets their score back, they get these sticky notes attached to it. So things like, I enjoyed the humor in your performance. Your music and dance really added to your performance. Your sets were really bright and colorful. The character's performance was really exciting. It could be, you could comment on their teamwork. Hey, really great teamwork. I loved how well your team worked together. Things that compliment the kids and these should be factual. You really should try and find something. So, and this is especially critical if it is a situation where things have gone very wrong in the long term, when things just didn't happen the way the team thought they would. They can really value these sticky notes when they know that, okay, we didn't do so well, but like our costumes are really good, or the clown was a really good performance. So these kind of can also soften the blow if they've had a bad long term. So there are different judging positions that you can have, and let's take a look at the judging team and the various roles on each of these teams. So the number one is the problem captain, or PC, and they are the state authority on the problem. So if you have any questions or concerns during the problem-specific training or the tournament, you're going to see the problem captain, because it is their job to know that problem inside and out. And they've usually been in charge of that problem for a while. So they're very aware of the intricacies of, for example, problem 3 or problem 4. They know how that problem works. So that is the problem captain. That's the head authority. Next up, you have the head judge, and that person is the judging team leader. So they, as you can see, they have a full list of responsibilities. They are the liaison between the judges, the coaches, and the PCs. So they're that kind of nexus of communication. The head judge will deliver the scores to the to the coach rather. They answer any questions that the coach may have about the score, and they manage difficult situations. Sometimes coaches can get upset if they think that a score wasn't fair. It can be a very tense day, and some adults get a little more invested than others do in the outcome, and it can be kind of difficult. So if you are a head judge, you can always call the PC, the problem captain, in if you need additional assistance. So if, for example, a coach is just not satisfied with what your explanation of the scores are, they're questioning you, they are, just really not happy, you can always call the PC in as backup to explain, okay, I'm the authority here. It all rests with me. Tell me, let me explain this to you. Or if a situation escalates, if you have a parent who is really just working themselves up, you can call in the problem captain to help resolve the situation. The head judge must be familiar with the problem as well as penalties that can be assessed. They're going to want to discuss any large penalties with the judging team so it can be presented properly to the coach. So if the judging team is like, we're going to assess a 20-point penalty, you got to explain that. They can't just present that to the judge, because that's 10% of their score. They're going to want to know why did that happen? What was so bad that they had to have that amount of points knocked off? So they're going to come back to the judging team and say, okay, why did this happen? The head judge manages the schedule and also works with the team if there's any issues. So for example, things happen on the day of the tournament. Car accidents have happened, props have arrived completely messed up, and they have to fix them. So a team member may have woken up sick, and they had to just make adjustments, a flat tire. The number of things that can go wrong when a team is just even trying to get to the tournament site. So it's up to the head judge to kind of work out how this can be rescheduled. And they try and do that in a way that is very accommodating to the team. So because they're trying to make it a non-stressful day. So it could be that maybe the judging team decides to work through the next break so that they can see the team then, just give them time to regroup, to get settled in, to get whatever fix needs to be fixed, to work out any problems that they got to work out. It could be maybe they change their lunchtime so they can schedule the team later in the day, or they tack them on at the end of the day, or maybe they see if another team would be willing to switch. So there's anything that a head judge can do to try and manipulate the schedule to make it easier for the team. So if there is a single penalty of more than 25 points, the head judge is going to report that to the problem captain and the tournament director, because that's a pretty hefty penalty. And at the end of the day, the head judge is responsible for reporting to the problem captain and the score room making sure that all of the score sheets are in for every single problem and that there are no questions. And once they've confirmed all of that, then they will release the judging team to go home. Now, within the judging positions, there are some non-scoring positions. So ones that are not responsible for giving any kind of score whatsoever. And they have the very important role, though, of providing a quality experience for everyone attending the tournament. But like I said, they don't actually score the teams. So some of those positions, one is a staging area judge, and they are the first point of contact for the team. So the team comes, they're getting all their props together in the room that they're working in. They're getting all ready to go and get in line for their performance. The staging area judge is going to review the paperwork. There are all sorts of different forms that the team has to submit before performing. So they're going to be checking that. That judge is going to check their paperwork. They're going to look for clerical errors. They're going to look for anything, that might be, some red flags on their paperwork. They're going to check the team sign, making sure that the membership name and number is on there. And just know that on the membership sign, other information is allowed. So if the kids wanted to list their name, if they wanted to put their not only their official membership name, but also their team nickname, they can put that on there. And it's not limited to just the membership name and number. They're going to look at what kind of personal jewelry the kids are wearing and whether or not that is part of the solution. So in other words, if a kid is wearing eyeglasses because they need them to see, that doesn't have to be listed on the cost form. But if they are wearing eyeglasses because it's part of their character, but they don't normally wear glasses, then they have to list those glasses on the cost form. Or any kind of jewelry. Are they wearing necklace, rings, bracelets? Are those part of the costume, or is that just jewelry that a child is wearing? And that includes things like religious symbols. Those don't have to be listed on the cost form. The staging area judge is also the first safety checkpoint. So they're going to be looking for the items that are not allowed, such as dry ice. They may also be looking at footwear to make sure that the feet are covered, and not just covered with socks, but they got something on there with a non-penetrable sole. They are going to be, in terms of, so once they check in and they move to the staging area, just know that non-team members, which includes coaches, parents, or other adults, can help move the kids' stuff from where they've been working on it and check into the staging area. It's fine for non-team hands to touch the items as they're being moved into the staging area. Now, if the staging area judge has concerns about the solution, they should make notes on the staging area or SA checklist for the judging team to assess after the performance. So if, for example, they suspect there might have been some outside assistance, so maybe they're looking at, maybe something happens in, the prop room where they're working, where they see a parent putting on the face paint on a kid, or they see parents touching up props. That's not allowed. That's for kids to do. The kids are supposed to be doing all those fixes. They're supposed to be putting on their own makeup, putting on their own costumes, all of that. Or if they just see, maybe they overhear something, they can note that on the checklist, and then they will let the actual judges handle that, because that can come up during the Q&A time after the performance. And then most importantly, the staging area judge is there to keep the team calm, to make sure they're having a good time, just really kind of being a fun, friendly presence for them. You have the timekeeper. This is the second judge to talk to the team during competition. You want to make sure, if you are a timekeeper, that you have consistent interactions with the team. And you don't want to indicate if you know the coach or team to the judging team or to the general audience. So, and I'll get to that in a second. So you're going to welcome the audience and you're going to introduce the team. This kind of, it sets the tone. It's kind of like the warm-up act. Oftentimes the timekeeper is very funny. They're very silly. It's really good. But when you're introducing the team, you don't want to let on that you know this team. So you don't, if you know them. So you don't want to be like, and here from my hometown, from my favorite high school is, because you're influencing, and that's just not good. As a timekeeper, you're the one that's actually going to start the time on the performance. And depending on the problem, you will either stop the time, you're going to stop the time, either when it hits 8 minutes. If they have to stop, you're going to tell the team time's up. Or if they go over the 8 minutes, you're going to be keeping an eye on how much over 8 minutes they go. And then at some point, you will have to stop them. The kids can't just keep performing. At some point, the problem tells you when you have to stop them. So you stop time when this team signals that it is finished, and the kids have to write that on one of the forms, what the final, kind of like what the signal is that the performance is done. And then that way they'll be able to record, that the problem finished in 7 minutes and 46 seconds, for example. And as timekeeper, you're keeping the judging team on schedule. So you want to make sure that we keep these teams moving throughout the day. So letting them know, hey, we're getting ready to bring the next team on deck. Let's wrap up, your paperwork, and let's get ready for the next team to come in. Another non-scoring position is score checker. That is reviewing the judges' scoring sheets, entering the scores into the computer, and you're going to check the entered scores for accuracy against the written score sheets. So the judges have handwritten sheets. You're putting them into the computer. You want to make sure all of that matches up. And you're also going to be interacting with the score room. So oftentimes the score room walks around, either the scores are uploaded through the internet, or there may actually be someone come to the from the score room to pick up the score sheets. And if there are questions, they may come back and say, hey, these numbers didn't add up, or you said this was a 7, it doesn't really look like a 7, can we, make sure that everything is correct. In problem 4, there is a non-scoring position known as weigh-in judge, and this is only with problem 4. They interact with all of the teams doing problem 4. They will weigh and measure all the structures associated with that problem and allow the team to make changes so they meet the criteria for problem 4. Okay, so then you have the scoring judges, the ones that are actually responsible for observing and recording the results of each team's performance. So let's look at some of their positions. So you have the long-term problem judges, and here is their list of responsibilities. If you are a long-term problem judge, you're going to carefully record and score what you have seen. You want to make sure that you are consistent from team to team when interpreting the rules. So that's part of what's going to happen during the problem-specific training, making sure that everyone is interpreting the rules the same. Once you have decided on that, you want to make sure you're carrying that out throughout the tournament day in terms of applying the same rule across every single team. Now, judges on the team may not score the same score on subjective scoring items, because remember, this is opinion, and that's fine. So if you are thinking something is an 8, but your co-judge thinks it's a 6, that's fine. It's an opinion. Your opinion is 8, their opinion is 6. No worries. Where you want to worry is if you're not being consistent in that. So if you gave a team an 8 and then later on we're like, no, that really should have been a 10, you can't do that. You need to keep it at an 8. You can't be up and down in your scores. You need to be consistent across the day, across all teams. Now, if there's an actual disagreement on the interpretation of a scoring item, the judges should discuss this first with the head judge. And then if you can't really reach a resolution there, then the problem captain steps in. So if you realize in speaking to one of your co-judges that you are interpreting the rules completely differently, which hopefully you won't, because you're going to hash all this out in your problem-specific training, you could go to the head judge and say, hey, this is how they think, this is how I think, what are we supposed to be thinking here? Now, on objective, anything that's an objective score where they get points for something happening, remember, if one judge sees it, then all the judges score it. So even if it was your job to hopefully see it, if you didn't see it happen for whatever reason, maybe you got distracted by something, you were kind of at the wrong angle to see it happen, if just one other judge saw that happen, then you score it as having happened. As we said, you're going to get a chance after the kids finish performing to go up and look at all of their stuff up close and personal, have some Q&A time with the kids, encourage them to brag, encourage them to talk about what they did. and show appreciation for every performance. Style judges, now you will only be responsible for the items on the style form, those 5 elements that we talked about. You want to evaluate and score consistently throughout the day, just like all the other scoring judges are doing. You're going to look at the solution up close during the Q&A team. You're going to be focusing, though, on their style elements. So you're going to be like saying, tell me about this style thing that you asked us to judge. Remember, they cannot double dip. So if they are already being scored on something in the long-term solution, they cannot also be scored on that same thing in the style solution. Hopefully that will be picked up by the staging area judge, and the kids will choose a different element if they're trying to do that, but they aren't allowed to double dip in that way. And like the other judges, you're showing the kids appreciation for the performance. Spontaneous judges, so you're at the other part of the building where only spontaneous is happening. So each team is going to complete a spontaneous problem. As we said, it requires impromptu problem solving skills and effective teamwork. You're going to observe their responses and record the score, and you're going to evaluate their creativity and their teamwork. And all of that will be laid out in the spontaneous problem that you'll be doing. You will be doing the same spontaneous problem with every single team. You will have a chance to talk with your judging team about how the problem would be solved. Often the spontaneous judges will actually work through the problem themselves before the tournament even starts, just to kind of get a sense of how they would solve the problem. So you will have that opportunity to do that. Now, there is something called tribunals. They do not happen very often, and we keep our fingers crossed that we don't have one. But should a team question a scoring element and they cannot resolve it with the head judge, they cannot resolve it with the PC, they are just unhappy, they can request a tribunal. They can say, no, we want to go to the top. Now, this can only happen for objective scores where the question is an interpretation of the rules. So remember, the coaches cannot question a subjective score because that is an opinion score, but they can question an objective score, which is whether something happened or not. And it could be that there's some ambiguity in the wording and they want to, take it to even higher authority about how to resolve this. So let's talk about the actual long-term problems. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can always go back and take a look at these slides to see what they are. But each year, new long-term problems are provided by Odyssey of the Mind International, and here are the 2021-22 problems. The first one is problem 1, which is the vehicle problem. It's always a vehicle problem, and it's called Escape Vroom. And you can take a minute to read that real quick. And that's an example of a vehicle that was from one year in competition. Problem 2 is technical/performance. And this year it's called Odyssey Reinvention. And last year, Arm & Hammer Baking Soda started sponsoring this problem. They are sponsoring it again this year, and part of the performance must use Arm & Hammer Baking Soda. And there are some restrictions around what they can do with that baking soda because, as we all know, baking soda can be a real mess. So you can take a look at that problem. And that is from a previous year. These obviously are Division I kids. They're younger, and they're solving a problem 2. Problem 3 is classics. It is a performance-based problem, but it usually has some kind of classical element to it, literature, art, history, something like that. And this year it's called Name Here, the Musical Production. So you're going to be seeing something that sounds like a musical. And this is from a previous year. As you can see, one of the things that makes it classics is you've got a reproduction of Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers there. So there was probably something to do with having famous artwork in the problem. Problem 4 is balsa or structure. So they actually have to build something out of balsa wood that holds weight. It's really super fun. It's interesting to see how high their weights can go. So that is that problem there. It's called Matryoshka structure this year is the title of that problem. And here is a kid actually testing their structure from a previous year. You can see that's called a crusher board, the thing that is red and yellow with the pipe coming out of it. And then it has the board on top, and they placed weights on top of it. And they try to see how much weight the structure can hold. And there's a whole performance built around it as well. Problem 5 is a performance. It's strictly performance. This is where you're going to see your theater kids. This year it's called Life is Like a Circus. And you can read there what it is that they're going to be performing. And just so you know, these things are what are called the problem synopsis. This is just a little paragraph describing it. The actual problem that the team gets is anywhere from 6 to 9 pages long. It has so much information, so much information that they cannot solve a problem based on just this little synopsis. They have to get a hold of the entire problem, which lists everything that they're required to do, how they're going to be scored on it. And this is from performance 1 year. I would say this is probably a Division III team, but you can see that kind of the neat things that these kids do. And then you have the littles, the primary group, the K to second non-competitive, and it's called tricycle transport. So you can see it has elements of problems 1 through 5. They have to make a vehicle. They're, they have to have a performance piece to it. They have to have just kind of, it's got elements kind of all 5 problems, just to give them an idea about where they can go in the future with their Odyssey journey. So there are some special awards that happen outside of just getting first, second, or third place for your problem. There is the Renat Trafuska Creativity Award. There is also the OMERS Award. And judges should always remember to consider these 2 awards when they see something that is out of the ordinary. So this is above and beyond whatever score they get for their long-term problem or their spontaneous problem. So the Renat Trafuska Creativity Award is the most highly coveted award in the Odyssey of the Mind program. It is awarded to teams or individuals who exhibit exceptional creativity through their problem solution. Success is not a criteria. So the award is a way to acknowledge creative thinking and risk taking. So they could have done something amazing and maybe it didn't work out completely, but if it was amazing, they could still get a Renatra for it. Award winners will automatically advance to the next level of competition. So since we are doing just a state tournament this year, if a team is awarded a Renat Trafuska, that team will automatically advance to the World Finals. And only long-term, style, or spontaneous judges may make this nomination. So those are the only judges who are allowed to nominate an individual or a team for a Renat Trafuska. And it is something where it is really a wow thing that you see, whether it is how something looks, how something is engineered, just anything that makes you just think, my God, I cannot believe I just saw that. That was just amazing. Now, OMERS Award, that is named for the raccoon mascot of Odyssey of the Mind. He's called Omer. And it recognizes teams or individuals who demonstrate outstanding sportsmanship, exemplary behavior, or exceptional talent. And it is not tied to the performance necessarily. It could be something that happened. A coach could nominate a kid for an Omer for something maybe they did leading up to the tournament. It could be behavior that officials saw during the tournament. Maybe they helped another team out, something like that. So students, coaches, parents, and officials, tournament officials are all eligible to nominate or to be nominated. So it is not limited to just teams or team members. It's anytime you see somebody basically doing a really great thing, being a really great human, that you can nominate them for an Omer. And it is not intended to reward creativity. That's only the Renatra that can reward creativity. This is more about sportsmanship, behavior, that type of thing, that they would get an Omer. And just because you nominate for either award does not mean the team will necessarily get it. So you're going to fill out a form, and it's actually going to go to the score room, and the Delaware Odyssey of the Minds, the board members, core group of the board members are actually going to review all of those nominations and make a decision on whether or not they're going to be awarded. So just because you nominate someone or nominate a team or an individual does not necessarily mean that they will actually receive that award. So just as we kind of wrap up for today, what makes a great judge or official? What are the important dates? And what do you need to do next? So you want to make it fun. It should be a fun day. It should be a fun day for the kids, and it should be a fun day for you. I mean, it really is a super fun day. I mean, it just can be a really great time. We try and make it as non-stressful for everybody. So judges are encouraged to wear creative hats to get in the mood of the event. And this will be discussed during your problem-specific training, because oftentimes judging teams will have a theme, and that theme will be related to the problem from that year. Judging teams create and provide witty responses to judges' "Are you ready?" So this is something that the judging team will decide before the tournament. And judges are encouraged to laugh and smile, and to make the kids laugh and smile. So it is fine to laugh during a performance. It's fine to smile during a performance. That you don't have to be like completely poker face throughout the entire thing. You know, I often, when I was a coach, would tell my kids, if you made them laugh, you probably did something pretty good. So my kids would often look to see if judges were laughing or smiling. So what makes a good official? One, be punctual. It is incredibly important that we stick to the schedule for the day in order to make sure that teams, you know, get through, that we finish on time, you know, that we have that little bit of wiggle room in case the team does have some kind of problem and they have to be rescheduled until later. So we want to really stick as closely as we can to the schedule. So that's why you need to be there on time, if not a little early, for the day. Make sure you know the rules of your problem. You want to read that problem several times. You're going to go through it in your problem-specific training, but on your own, really, you know, really take a look at it and make sure you understand it, because you're there to judge it based on what you understand. Make sure you score consistently. So do not suddenly change courses because you're like, oh, I've been scoring too high, I got to knock things down. If you started up scoring high, you need to end scoring high. Don't look to penalize, you know, look to make things a level playing field. So we're not asking you to overlook things that clearly should not be overlooked, but we don't want you, we're not there to penalize the kids. We're there to just make it a level playing field. So you want to know what makes a really great Odyssey of the Mind judge as opposed to a good one? It's a great attitude. And you really do have to have a good attitude. You're going to want to smile. You want to make the team feel relaxed. You want to enjoy the performances. You want to congratulate the teams. Hey, that was really great. Thank you so much. And you want to have fun. So that's really what makes it a great day, is if you're there and you're having fun and you're looking to have fun and you're looking to enjoy your time there, then that's going to make you a great official. So the Delaware State Finals Tournament is on Saturday, March 19th. It is at Milford High School. There is the address 1019 North Walnut Street in Milford. So you want to make sure where you're going and how long it's going to take you to get there. Now your problem-specific training will be offered live online on the following days and times. So you want to attend the training that fits your schedule. So the training is actually it's the same training being offered twice to try and accommodate everybody's schedule. So you either need to do it on Wednesday, February 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. And it may not run the full 2 hours. They're just kind of padding that time. Or Thursday, February 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. And you will be contacted with the information for how to log into the training. They will be offered, I believe, on Google Meet as opposed to Zoom. So you will get that link to be able to jump on to the training. So your training as a judge is not complete until you take the general rules certification test. So to take the online test, you want to go to tinyurl.com/OM Judge Test 2022. So that is where you want to go. This test is required of every single judge every single year. So it doesn't matter if you're a new judge or you've been judging the full 42 years that we've been running Odyssey of the Mind in Delaware, you have to take the test every year. It is a certification test, and we have to make you take it every year. It is a 20-question test, multiple choice. You may go back and review these slides. You may review this presentation, this video again. So it really is an open book test. It's not timed or anything. We just want to make sure that you really understand the basics of being a judge. So it's important that you understand those general rules. I would ask that if you score less than 15, I'd strongly encourage you to retake the test just to see, make sure you really understand it. So if you get below a 15, why don't you take a look at the slides again and then go back and take the test again. If you have questions, here are the contacts. So we have Jackie Blevins is our director. There is her email, jackie@DEOotm.org. Our tournament director is Stephanie Wagner. She is the boots on the ground, figuring out how this tournament is going to run. The judges coordinator is Anthony Prisco. He is the one in charge of making sure all the judges get assigned. And then I am the training coordinator. So you can, if you have questions or concerns, you can email any of us and we will do our best to give you an answer. So once again, thank you so much for volunteering. We would not be able to have a successful tournament without you. We truly appreciate you. We truly appreciate the time that you're giving. The kids appreciate the time that you're giving. So thank you so much. So your next step is to please take the test. And then you will get the information for how to log in to your problem-specific training. If you do not get that information within a couple of weeks of the first training, so I would say by early February, if you haven't heard anything, then you might want to get in touch with Anthony at DEOotm.org to find out what's going on, to make sure that you are in fact assigned a problem. But thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at the problem-specific training and then at the tournament itself. So thank you so much. We really appreciate everything that you're doing. Have a good day. Bye.